Joining us on the phone right now, we have Nancy Palmer from the Georgia Craft Brewers Guild. Some big news in Georgia beer today.
Yes. Nancy, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, guys. It's a good day.
Yes, absolutely. So the big news, beer bill came out today, SB85, with some great news potentially for Georgia's breweries. Can you give us kind of an overview of what's included in that bill?
Yeah, so the highlights are that a brewery is going to be able to sell beer to consumers when they walk in the door. And for those of you that have been following us, which I imagine is the entirety of your audience, this is kind of a big deal. What it's going to allow for is a total annual sales from a brewery of up to 3,000 barrels a year, which is equivalent to about 6,000 regular-sized kegs. And a brewery is going to be able to do on-site sales without any per-person per-day cap. And then they'll be able to sell up to a case of beer per person per day to go. And then all of that beer, on-site and off-site, gets lumped into that 3,000 barrel cap that's annual.
So you mean to tell me that I have this crazy notion that I can actually eventually walk into a brewery and buy the product that they make?
Yes, that's
Wow.
exactly what you can do.
Oh, my goodness.
And we're actually, the torrent tasting system will be repealed. So there won't be this requirement for an educational tour or the kind of roundabout transactions or anything like that. Also, breweries will kind of fall under regular food law. So a brewery could have, a food service component if they wanted one. And there's also a cleanup for brew pubs there. There was a piece of the brew pub license that kept brew pubs from having all of the retail rights that other retailers in the state have. And we're cleaning that up as well so that brew pubs have the same retail rights as other retailers in the state.
Now, with this new bill and the 3,000 barrel limit, is there any other language like a percentage as well, or is it just 3,000 barrels?
It's just a 3,000 barrel cap, and that's something that clearly was very carefully considered. And it's important to note as well that this does not just apply to craft breweries, that any brewery in the state will be able to have the 3,000 barrel cap. And so we wanted to serve breweries of all sizes equally.
Now, one thing with that is it will benefit all breweries, but it sounds like it could be extremely beneficial for, say, the little guy that's either recently started or wants to start and may not have the outlay, capital to put a lot in. So with this new one where he can do some sales, it would be basically a lower cost of entry into the market. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, one of the challenges that Georgia has is that, we ranked 48th in breweries per capita, but something like 17th in total craft beer made, right? So we're making a lot of craft beer, but we're doing it with relatively few breweries. And there's a big segment of the market we're missing, which is small breweries. This legislation, if passed, would make it a lot easier to open. It would lower the barrier to entry, and it would make breweries that are smaller profitable faster. And I think that that's going to be a real boon, particularly for small towns in Georgia, to be able to attract breweries. I was recently with a group from Macon of legislators, and one of them said, I can't imagine how many restaurants we'd have if it cost $2 million to open a restaurant. I said, that's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that this is going to have a real positive effect on the smaller breweries in the state, and I think we'll see a lot of smaller breweries open.
Now, Nancy, how are you able to work with the Georgia Beer Wholesalers Association to kind of get this going through?
Oh, I have to give credit elsewhere here. The starting in kind of mid 2016, business owners, business leaders from both the Wholesalers Association and our organization just started having conversations. And there was a real commitment on both ends to not walk away. And ultimately, those conversations and negotiations produced, this agreement. And my job is to execute. And I hope that I'm able to do that. But this really goes to the business owners on both sides for listening to each other and sticking with it and finding a way to find some common ground.
Now, with this, Nancy, is there any timeline on the process or what you expect may happen there?
So, the legislative process is not always predictable,
right.
And the legislature has not set their schedule for the rest of the year. And clearly, there's some reaction to what's going on in the federal government that could have some impact on how the schedule kind of moves forward. But ultimately, we're starting in the Senate. We'll go through Senate Regulated Industries. The chairman of that committee is our sponsor, so we feel good about that process. We'll go over to the House, and if there's any changes in the House, then we'll have to go back to the Senate. But ultimately, we feel that this will hopefully happen quickly and without too much excitement. I'm hoping for a very boring year without too many changes.
Boring would be nice, Nancy. Nancy Palmer from the Georgia Craft Brewers Guild. Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.